Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Scott Rickard. I'm the Chief Investment Officer at Granite Investment Group. We're here today as part of a series of seminars we've put together for our clients to give them a better understanding of the risks and benefits associated with investing in non-performing loans. Joining me today is Jeff Merrick. Jeff is Managing Director of Granite Loan Solutions and really responsible for the day-to-day operations of the company and the strategic vision of the company. Also joining me today is Chaz Gwynn. Chaz is the portfolio manager and head trader responsible for the day-to-day trading responsibilities for the company. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Our pleasures.
We're here today to talk about advanced exit strategies. Jeff, can you give me an idea of some of the loans we acquire and the characteristics of those loans?
Yeah, we specialize in low value, and what that means is $120,000 or less current value of the properties. We only buy first liens, residential non-performing mortgage loans. And in the body of that, we kind of start breaking it down, or we suggest that our buyers break it down as well into certain assets that will work for capital growth strategies, meaning that you want to get your capital in and your capital out rapidly. And then there is the cash flow strategies, where you want to put your money in and get yield, cash on cash yields for long term. And Chaz is probably best to kind of elaborate on some of those strategies for us.
I think we always try to tell a client first to make sure you know what you're pinpointing. Look at the information that we're providing as a firm to you and determine what your strategy is going to be. And I would keep it as simple as by occupancy. So I would look at, is it going to be a vacant asset where I'm going to be able to seek that property, find out where that homeowner is, and potentially have a resolution with them sooner rather than later. Obviously, to us as a vacant property, we can kind of see that they've laid down. They've moved out of the property for whatever reason, whether it be a loss of a job, whether it be a health issue, or the reasons can go on and on. But essentially what we like to kind of steer our client, or at least let our client know, is look at the occupancy, determine what you guys want to do, and also perfect it. Make sure you guys know what your strategy is going to be going in, so that at the end of the day, when you look at this business, you can also not only perfect what you're looking at, but eventually allow you to evolve your business into potentially looking at other strategies that are going to allow you to actually capital growth your money much quicker.
Chaz, you're talking about the occupied and unoccupied and the characteristics between the two. Can you talk briefly about the different strategies for, as an example, the occupied portfolio?
Sure. I think if you look at an occupied asset, you look at, hey, listen, the homeowner's still there. Okay, they're still showing some want and some will to stay in that property. So I think when you look at a situation like that, you have people. You have people you're going to have to deal with as a homeowner. So as a bank, potentially, because we always say, when you do in fact buy that note, you do become the bank. So with that said, you do a little bit hold the cards in your hand to determine what those homeowners want to do. At the end of the day, they haven't been paying for an X amount of time. So let's determine, are you still working? Are you still in the house, and do you still want to retain the house? Obviously, Jeff and I always like to root into, do you have kids? Are you working? We know there's a story attached to this, so we want to kind of root into that. With that said, is a lot of our clients will come in and look for a strategy more along the lines of a modification. So, hey, let's keep the people in here. Let's determine how we can begin to cash flow this asset and keep this asset for long term. Or at the end of the day, if the borrowers are saying, listen, I can't afford this house anymore. X amount has happened. I've got a divorce. I have health issues, and I've lost my job. Well, let's help move them along with potentially some relocation assistance, or something we can allow them to walk away kind of scot-free, per se.
And I think one of the other things too, certainly a number of the presentations we have within our Knowledge Center talk about some of the other third-party or federally sponsored programs that can help people stay in their homes and help them, be part of the community and save their homes. And I think certainly as we become the bank, we have the ability and some flexibility to move that around. You've talked about the different types of situations. And I'm sure in some cases, what we've encountered is investors are just frustrated that they haven't talked to anybody, or they haven't been able to get any headway with the banks. And I think in a lot of cases I've heard some very rewarding phone calls where you've had conversations with people that want to stay in their home. They've just been waiting for someone to talk to. Jeff, can you expand on that?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's really our primary commitment is to keep homeowners in their homes. And when we started out on this journey, we made it clear that we were dealing with people and not paper, and that's the case. When we buy large tranches of loans from the banks, you know, most of the borrowers are 1 to 2 years behind in payments, and some of the banks might charge off the assets. They might be overwhelmed with inquiries and just can't field them, you know, to as best possible. So when we buy these large tranches, it's natural through the letters that go out, the TILA letters and the welcome letters per regulation, that the borrowers are going to call in, and then they know that they've got somebody new, a new set of ears, and we receive calls all the time, and actually those calls go to our servicing entities. Sometimes they'll infiltrate through to our offices, and we have had the luxury of speaking to borrowers personally, and you know, they're really just looking for help. And when you buy a note, when we buy notes, and when our clientele buy notes from us, we have a really, you know, we become the bank, and we have what I call the power of the pen, and it's a really nice place to be. I can recall conversations with borrowers that, you know, we're trying to get loan modifications for months and months and just really couldn't get through the process. And when we got to them, we had a good talk about their intentions of retaining the home, their employment status, run through their budget, and acknowledge that, you know, their rate maybe started at a 6% and jumped all the way up to a 12, and somewhere around 8 or 9 they just simply couldn't afford the mortgage anymore. And so with that kind of knowledge and that kind of line of questioning, we can drop the rate down, we can lock it in. Maybe it was an adjustable, now it's fixed, and we can remedy the situation for the long term. There's also situations where you'll talk to a borrower and they might be what we call a strategic defaulter. You know, they owe $200,000 and now their house is worth less than $100,000, and they're just made a decision that they're not going to do that financially. And again, we have the power to knock that balance down to whatever we choose to do and create a real permanent solution for the borrowers.
Yeah, Jeff, I think it's one of the things that's really important to point out here is when Granite first got into this business, we literally spent, I remember when you guys joined the company, we kind of had your hands tied, you know, for the first almost 12 months you were with the company. Slow down, guys, you know, no trading loans until, frankly, we'd gone through all the regulatory aspects and understanding all the regulatory rules and what you can do and what licenses you need to do the different things. And so, you know, a lot of things you're talking about today where you're talking about talking to lenders, it's important for the people that are investing with us or buying loans from us that they understand that in some states you're allowed to do that, in some states you're not. You know, you have to use a licensed entity to talk to the borrowers. So it's very important that as they get to know us, that they understand what those rules are, so they're not stepping over that line related to what they're legally capable of doing. And certainly we can help guide that process. So, and what we're talking about as well too, I think it's certainly important to note that, as an example, we've seen situations where we have loans that are vacant, but on the other hand, their property taxes are current, their utilities are on, which still tells us the same thing, that that person is interested, even though they can't afford the home, they maybe have given up on the home, there's still desire on their part to do something with the home, whether that's move back into the home, or they still have a sense of responsibility that they need to take care of that home. And I think the other thing that we've found, and this probably goes into another area of the exit strategy, is a lot of cases where people have walked away from the home, they suddenly feel like their liability is done and they've walked away and they're off the hook. And I think when you get on the phone with those people and explain to them, hey, you know, you're still on title, and therefore if your house becomes an issue or someone slips and falls, you know, you're the one with the issue as the homeowner of that property. And I think that lends itself to the deed in lieu and leads itself to the other opportunities. And I think that's one of certainly the reasons, Jeff, you had the idea for these seminars and these presentations, is to really educate basically those that buy loans from us that, you know, I think everybody's first inclination is I'm going to go foreclose and get access to the real estate. That may not be the best strategy for the asset. The best strategy may be to actually modify that loan and hold that loan for cash flow. So I think part of this process is educating people as to understanding all the different exit strategies. And I would point out that certainly in our Knowledge Center, we have a much more in-depth presentation or webinar that goes into the advanced exit strategies and covers it in much more detail. And we also have a much longer presentation that kind of talks about other aspects of what we're doing and why we're doing it the way we're doing it, to try and, again, get people comfortable with the variety of strategies that are available to them. Chaz, can you give us a little more insight into how you help our buyers figure out the proper exit strategy for a loan?
Sure. I think what our investors or our future or current clientele is going to see when they're dealing with Granite is how we differ is number one, we want to always remain transparent. And I think the biggest thing about our staff and our employees that we have here is that we always want to remain as well consistent. So what you can get from us not only is transparency through your acquisition, but also complete professionalism to determine what strategy you should eventually take after your acquisition. So I think how Granite differs from other firms that are out there and other firms that have been and are going to be participating in this space is a simple fact of they hope you miss, right? They hope you don't see everything that they want you to see. So I think how Granite differs a little bit is, number one, we want you to see what the true market value of this property is. Secondly, we want to make sure you understand not only you're in first lien position, but what other subordinate liens are going to be behind you. And I think how all this relates into is what is your strategy truly going to be? So from that standpoint, we want to help our clients determine what to be good at. Because I think if you determine what you can be good at, which will hopefully evolve into you strategizing onto other strategies for yourself in terms of occupied, REOs, notes, mods, cash flow, it will help you evolve your business and potentially just not become a 1 to 2 one-off buyer, but eventually grow yourself to be even a fund manager or own your own private equity firm in the future.
That's important to expand the horizon of what you're able to do with the different loans to maximize your value. Jeff, I hear you say all the time, certainly there's a big demand in the marketplace for REO assets, but nobody seems to be able to find them. Can you expand on how to take a non-performing loan and convert it to an REO?
Absolutely. This is, today, 2012, this is how you create REOs. Really, they've been absorbed in the marketplace and they're very challenging to get. And when you do get to them, there's really no discount of any type involved in it. So when you purchase distressed mortgage notes, you always have the option to foreclose. And we always hope and kind of gear our clientele to look at that as the last option. But through acquiring mortgage loans, you can talk with borrowers. Vacants are a great, great segment to start in. If you look at vacant assets, as Chaz had mentioned earlier, the borrowers have already emotionally detached, emotionally and physically detached from the property. So therefore, you're not displacing a family. They've already moved. So that's a great scenario where you can locate the borrowers. They do have a responsibility still involved in that property, a liability. So it's very appealing to them to sign over the property to you. And I've done them in under 10 days. From the time I deployed my capital, 10 days later, I've had a deed in my hand. So, because of the abundancy of distressed mortgage notes that we foresee now and in the next 2 to 3 years, this is the way to get to REOs. And the nice part is that on average, we're selling at a 60% discount off of market. So there's plenty of room up above. Whether you're going to lease it for long term, your yield's just going to be that much better, or whether you're going to sell it, your margin will be better as well.
Jeff, can I ask, as an example, someone that lives in, let's say, Dallas, Texas, or Arizona, or Southern California, how do you implement a strategy to buy assets outside of your neighborhood? Or because I assume most of the assets you get are probably Midwest or geographically dispersed, but how do people do something outside of the market that they're in?
Well, you really need to lean on your servicing companies. Servicing companies hold all the proper licensing to collect and execute these strategies in all states. As you'd mentioned, some states don't have that stringent of requirements. So the first thing you need to do is do your homework, find out legally where you can operate and how you can operate. Align with a good servicing company, and we'll be happy to refer our clients to a handful of them. And learn the foreclosure process, learn the time frames and the costs involved. And servicing companies can refer you to law offices in any state across the country. And these are proven affiliate groups that these companies refer to for a reason, because they do a good job.
I think we also see our local boots on the ground investors starting to emerge into the market. And they're what we like to say is that they're tiptoeing into the market. And we understand that. So we always want to encourage them, stay in your local market, be successful at what you do, because riding a bike in Texas is the same like riding a bike in New York. So it's buying a note and making sure you're understanding the disposition from A to Z. And I think once you can do that once, 2, and 3, 4 times successfully, I think it'll allow you to be a bit more comfortable to kind of get out of your initial marketplace and expand. And I think become comfortable in buying nationwide once you do lend on the services that we're also going to help gear you towards, the national REO liquidations and your servicing companies and your nationwide platforms for complete liquidation from A to Z. And I think with that type of help will allow you to be comfortable in purchasing traditionally out of the marketplace that you either live in or like to buy in.
And to expand on that point a little bit, you know, Chaz and I talk to a lot of investors, and based on our experience of years of being able to see how companies operate, some successful, some not so successful, I think one common thread that we've recognized is in this business, we always suggest that you don't be the jack of all. Don't try to do and line up all disposition strategies. Get good at something, and maybe it's 1, 2, or 3 strategies, and try to stick as close to that as possible. There's always going to be a potential wild card of just a borrower who's just not going to work with you, and you have to do, you know, what you have to do. But, you know, years ago when I started buying mortgage notes, I found that the modification strategy was my favorite, and I figured out which states I could talk to borrowers in, and I did so, and I honed my interview process, and we're actually, you know, happy to share that process with our clientele as well. We've got a questionnaire that's very simple but yet effective, and you know, if you buy at a non-performing price point and you get that loan reperforming, you saved a home. That's step 1. Step 2 is the secondary market investors will buy that asset from you after just 2, 3, or 4 payments under your belt. And typically I would modify a borrower and either refi them out, and 3 months later, if they qualified for a refinance, then I could get 95% of value in my pocket. And if I couldn't modify them, then I would turn to the secondary market, and we can refer you to plenty of sources where you can sell these types of notes, and I would have a 30 to 70% markup on top of what I paid.
Okay. As we wrap up, Chaz, you spend the entire day, every day on the phone talking to loan buyers. What's a common thread in the conversations you're having with these people?
I think because we buy in such big blocks and we are such a consistent player with every majorly traded bank in not only the US but as well as a global bank, is the fact of we're the only entity or platform that you can come in and customize your business platform. So yes, do we have maybe 500,000 or plus loans at any one given time, but the fact of the matter is when you're trying to figure out your exit strategy, the biggest question I always get from a client is, well, how can I determine what I need to buy? How do I make sure that I'm making the right decisions and spending my investment time as well as my criteria and efforts and due diligence in the right market? So I think the biggest question we always see is how can we get something customized for us as a particular client? And I think with our ever vast and growing clientele, I think what we can see as well as not only our trade desk but our infrastructure, you can always come in and just send us an email, send us a phone call, and always get something customized to exactly what you're looking for.
And Jeff, in wrapping up, do you have any last comments?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, along with that is all the other sources I purchased from in the past, I always had to pay for my own diligence. And with our VOT process and the diligence documents that we actually pay for and put out on the table for our clientele, not only can you come in and customize a tape, but it really doesn't cost you anything to look at it. So, you know, you can come in, you've already mitigated your lost deal risk, which I incurred tens of thousands of dollars in the past, and you can come in, you can get a tape that meets your criteria, costs you nothing to look at it, get back to us with a bid, and actually buy it from a direct seller. So we're proud of what we've built at Granite Loan Solutions. I know that our customers are really enjoying our platform, and you know, we're always open and looking for feedback. We send out surveys and ask our customers what we can do to be better, and we're committed to this.
Well, and certainly I know one thing I would advise customers is we are certainly a high velocity player. The volume of loans we're doing is increasing on a month-to-month basis, and so I would encourage people to go to our website, get vetted, get access to the information, work with our team of people at Granite Loan Solutions, and and understand the process, because we do move very quickly. We sell through portfolios very quickly. There's always plenty of inventory and opportunity, but we do move quickly. So I would encourage people to get vetted, get educated, participate in our Knowledge Center, and enjoy the process. It's a great opportunity, and I certainly appreciate the two of you joining us today, and look forward to more of these conversations going forward.
No, thank you, Scott.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.